Hello team, apologies for slight delays. We are back in business, and welcome back. Welcome back everybody online. Great to see you out there, and it looks like there is few of us still joining. I had a question there. Was there a question from Peter? Straight to the point, no? Anybody was asking any questions out there up front? Nope. All right, look. Welcome back. Great to see you, everybody online. As I said, very excited about fintech space and today's session. The time flies, as it is the case, and we are entering week number 3, which is Happy Monday for everybody. Great to see you online. Today, this session, we're going to continue in the introductory phase of fintech. So as you know, week 1 and 2, we dive deep into the fintech world. We introduced you a number of companies, we went through a number of projects, we went through a number of strategies, and also we kind of touched on the innovation framework, where we were looking at what the disruption is, what is the disruptive innovation, and what are the features of fintech and why fintech is related to the disruption per se. There is a lot of material online, as you know, as I've told you before. There is a lot of information. There is a lot of hype about fintech, and I try to narrow down and get grounded in terms of the definitions. This week, specifically this week, is going to be dedicated to more technical aspects. And what I mean by that is technical aspects for non-technical business teams, where I'm going to introduce you to a couple of the tools that the fintech operators are successfully using, such as Afterpay, right, or Zip, or any of the fintech operators in the fintech space, from a technological standpoint, are actually using to be successful. So that's the purpose of today's session. Focus on more tangible examples of the tools that are currently available out there, that you and I can actually use to build any sophisticated businesses. So that's the purpose of this session, right? So today we're going to dedicate our time to the fintech again. The first 2 hours together, we're going to have a bit of an open discussion. I'm going to trigger some group work potentially, see how we go. And then the last hour together, we're going to flip into our workshop, where I'm going to cover quite a lot of ground in terms of week 3 material, which is on the Ed platform. And then also I want to show you a couple of practical examples of coding when dealing with Excel spreadsheets, Excel data. And in actual fact, we're going to have a look at Visa and Afterpay price performance. And I'm going to dive deeper into the mechanics of using Python in this space. Very simple example. You must be asking why. Well, first of all, because that's what fintech company is going to be using, or are using in actual fact, or any other banks. But also, it introduces you to the core aspects of coding in a simple format, applied format. And also, lastly, it's very likely going to be useful for your assignment at the end, which is Python dedicated assignment, as you know. All right, so that's the plan for today. As simple as that. Before going into the content today, let me just very briefly go through the Moodle site, which is assessment. And as you guys can see, this is not an official announcement or anything. I'll send you more information about this across the week. But anyway, just a heads up. So for next week, which is week number 4, we're going to be running a quiz number 1. So that's the first quiz that we have scheduled for assessment. And that covers week 1, 2, and 3 combined, so inclusive of this. So the first 3 weeks. The quiz is going to be online, as you can see. And the quiz is just going to be running on this time. So it's going to be 3 p.m. It opens up at 3 and it closes at 4. So 3 to 4 p.m. Sydney time. And you're going to have like 40 minutes to complete the questions. I've provided an example in the Moodle, so feel free to have a look at the example of the questions. The focus of this quiz is on concepts, so it's a conceptual quiz. We're going to be looking for your understanding of the material number, week number 1, 2, and 3, and in an applied fashion. So applied use of the knowledge base of the fintech space that we've introduced to you. This quiz will not have any coding questions, so there is not going to be any Python related questions. So anything that you guys done in the Ed platform is not included in this quiz. So the quiz material, everything that's involved and included in the actual lecture or seminar notes is included, and any of the readings that I've been attaching to those weeks are actually included as well. So that's just a note on the week 4 quiz number 1, which is next week. All right, just a heads up. Also, in terms of the teamwork, I've noticed that most of you have completed successfully the team allocations, so very happy about it. Going forward, we're going to work in teams as we move across the board. Some of you might not have been allocated yet, so I will be doing it shortly, and I will assign you randomly to various teams. So at the end, we're going to end up everybody being allocated into a team of 5. And today, very briefly, before actually diving into the topics today, let me start to talk about the teamwork and why we're actually running the team assessment as a fintech proposal in these sessions. As you know, I'm a big fan of teamwork, and the more diverse the team is, the better it is for the team performance. Whether it's in terms of skills, in terms of allocation, in terms of nationality, the more diverse the team is, the better the performance of the team. Generally speaking, it's very useful to have a very broad mix of skill sets on your team. That's one of the reasons why we're actually going to simulate a teamwork. Another reason is that, quite frankly, as a practitioner, it's almost impossible to build a solution on your own. And that's a statement of fact. If you want to deliver something for your organization, or if you want to create your own company, you are very likely going to need help and support, whether it's going to be your partners, whether it's going to be someone whom you actually employ, or whether it's going to be the boss that you're going to be working for ultimately at the end of the day. So everything is done through teams. So the notion of simulation in the teams is to bring you up to speed in this environment. And again, as a practitioner, I can tell you for a fact that the past 5 years, almost 5 years now, I've been always working in digital teams. So being in corporate world, I used to work with digital teams, with people from Southeast Asia, Japan, Singapore, all the way through London, New York, and down to San Francisco in 24/7 time zones. Always operating in, we were actually using WebEx in the old days. So now it's much more useful and friendlier to use Zoom and all the rest of the sessions. But generally, we were always in the environment of being digitized already, and that's like 5 years ago. So again, this goes back to me telling you and saying that the pandemic just accelerated this change that we are going through in banking and finance, and that's one of the reasons why I want to simulate that environment here. The deliveries for this course, because we are fully online, I've transposed the deliveries into 5-minute video pitch. So today I'm going to be talking to you mostly about what we expect to receive from the teamwork. And then as we go along next week and the week after, I'm going to be talking to you more about how and what is actually expected. So don't worry, we're going to spend more and more time as we go deeper into the course discussing the fintech proposal. And why do I put a lot of emphasis on the deliveries? So the deliveries here are designed to test your skills and understanding of the teamwork, but also the content, and squeeze the content into 5 minutes. Trust me, it's not easy to do. If you in a normal state, once we're gonna get face-to-face from the university perspective, we'll be able to actually invite you to take the floor and to present in front of us in terms of being face-to-face. We used to run that before, and that usually takes about 20 minutes. So you have 20 minutes to present the results of your team effort. In the digital space, we've compressed this into 5 minutes. So the first delivery for this task is actually a 5-minute video presentation. You can do it as a slide presentation. You can do it as a YouTube posting. You can do whatever the format you wish to use in terms of deliver the video presentation. So 5 minutes team presentation of your findings and pitch for your fintech proposal. And at the same time, we're going to be looking for receiving a written report. And the written report is 25 pages in total, as you can see, and preferably 3 pages per team member. So if you can split the work into the team, then each team member will deliver the 3 pages inside that presentation, and then you can be working as a cohesion as a team per se. That's one way to do it. Or if you can split the work and you work on it together, you deliver as an entire team. So I'm kind of indifferent in that respect. So so again, there is a question online if the date for the quiz was released. Yes, the quiz is in the session, so that means next Monday. 8th of March, 3 p.m. It's gonna be here, and it's gonna be 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. I'll send you a add kind of message just to notify and clarify. In terms of the delivery, there is another question. Yes, correct. So I want to show you a couple of things here as an example. So I won't go into the intricacies of the presentation. We will have more time with that as we go deeper into the course. So the delivery is here, and I'll get back to Ariel in terms of the question. So the deliveries here are twofold. The first is 5-minute video pitch. The second is a deck. It could be a report. So I call it a report, but you have 2 choices within that. You can deliver it as an expanded deck, and I'll talk about it later, or you can deliver it as a report, as a written, kind of a document, PDF style written document. So those are the 2 variations. I tell you why, and why we're actually doing it now, so you at least get a justification where we're heading. And then later on, I'll talk a bit more. So the reason why we're doing these deliveries, the reason why we're doing any of these deliveries is simply because as a practitioner, I've been sitting on a number of these sessions from the VC committee perspective. And I've seen a lot of presentations in the past where I'm trying to provide suggestions to you to what really works. And the usual process out there, it's not standard or anything, but the usual process out there is you invite the company to present. So that's what we're doing here. We invite you as a team of 5 to step in, and then you're going to be presenting to the committee, which is us, everybody here, potentially, right? And that's the first phase, and that's your presentation. So that's the 5-minute video pitch, right? Then there is a lot of companies presenting. So for a day, there could be 10 or 20 companies presenting to the committee. When the committee meets, they decide which company they will invite further. So what that means is, that the committee will say back and go back to the CEO of the company and say, look, I like your project. It makes perfect sense. We are interested. Can you provide more information? And that's the second report that I'm asking you to do. You need to give us more information about the actual project. So what it means is, if you actually tell us in the presentation that you found a extremely powerful quantum computing based algorithm to solve human nature behavioral science like solution, that's fine in the presentation. In the report, we need to understand more about the algorithm. Like, what sort of a specification did you use? What sort of algorithm you built? It's very similar to a Shark Tank in terms of the presentation, correct? So in terms of presentation, you present, you sell yourself, your company, your pitch, imagine Afterpay. Basically, you're creating Afterpay. You try to raise funds for that Afterpay. The report is more dedicated, more comprises of more details. So once the committee actually receives these details, they'll read this information, and you will still not get any funds. Even though you pass the stage number 1, which is the presentation, even though you pass stage number 2, which is the written report, you will not be getting any funding. You will not be getting any assistance other than, having a go. It is the last stage that we are not actually simulating here, that the VC committee will decide to continue with your project, and they will send a team to sit with you as a company. So in real world, this is where we finish. In real world, what is going to happen is you're gonna get a team of dedicated accountants, lawyers, professionals, investors sitting next to you and actually dissecting your business. This is called the full-on due diligence procedures, where you're going to be sitting with the team and you're going to be understanding the company inside out. You're going to be understanding the formulas, you're going to be understanding the methodologies, you're going to be understanding and everything about the company per se. And it is only after this stage when you're going to get the funding and potential contacts and help. So those are the 3 core stages of venture capital approach, especially in finance and fintech space, where you have a technology-like driven specialists needed to assess your performance. So once again, 3 stages in real world. The first one, presentation. You capture the audience, which is your VC committee or board of directors if you are internal. The second one is the written report. So when someone actually asks you for more information about the project, so you need to explain what are you actually doing. You just don't tell us you're using machine learning. We need to know what sort of machine learning you're going to use and how. And then the last one is, in the practice, the team of professionals sitting down with you in the company. So those are the 3 real world stages in a business out there. What are we doing here, and why are we actually running these presentations? Twofold. So again, just so you understand the justification of us doing it. Twofold. The first reason is because it's real. This is something that's actually happening out there, and you might actually be able to use this. And you will be able to potentially transfer these skills out there into the market space straight away. So the practical reasons behind running these presentations. The second reason why I'm actually offering this to you is what I've seen in the past when I've been hiring team members is the proof. And what I mean by that is a portfolio. People in architecture or in engineering, they might create their own portfolio of projects that they used to work on. And it's actually very helpful for the future employer or team member or partner to actually have a look at and understand the skill sets. So I'm actually giving you an opportunity to build something as a team together, even within the space of the following 7 weeks, right? To build something that you can actually put on YouTube, for instance, or put outside into the domain, and you can actually showcase it as your delivery. It is a part of the assessment here, correct? But at the same time, try to use it as a project that you build with a team of another 4 team members, and you've delivered on that solution to the full extent, professional extent. So then you can actually use it in your LinkedIn profile, in your CV, or whatever you wish to show to your employer or partners down the road when you're creating a business opportunities in fintech space. So that's just a humble suggestion. Reasons why we're running team. I'll finish off here, then move on. The reasons very quickly: get you a practical exposure to teamwork. I truly believe digital space is going to stay with us as we go along. And second reason is to give you an opportunity to create your own portfolio. So showcase, go out there and do it well, do it to the full extent, and then monetize it. So I want you to monetize this assignment for your benefit. So that's another second reason I'm doing this offering, okay? Bunch of questions there. Group allocations, not a problem. Send me an email, Matthew, on the combination of the groups you want, and we still can change. Gordon, yes, exactly as Zelia mentioned to you, you're gonna be allocated into groups. So don't worry about it. If you still not correctly allocated, ping me an email, and I'll be getting back to you. All right? So that's very quickly what I wanted to kind of highlight to you. 2 things. The quiz number 1 is going to be online next week, next Monday, 3 p.m. And then we're going to dive deeper into the fintech proposal. All right, everybody, cool? Any questions, shoot it through, and then I'll try to get back to you whenever I can in terms of responding. What I want to do now is actually dive into the topic for today. So as you know, so the Gordon is actually still asking questions there. So what I suggest is send me an email if you want to be in a specific group, then we can discuss that. Otherwise, you're gonna get allocated into a group of team members pretty much either today or very, very shortly. In terms of email, send me email right now, and then we can solve it. All right, so let's move on. Fintech infrastructure. This session is a bit unique. Last week, we had a bit of a theoretical session. We've been talking theoretical aspects of innovation and disruption. This session is more practical. So what I want to show you, guys, is why. Basically, we try to answer a question: why some fintech companies are more successful than others, even though they operate in the same space. Very good examples of these would be Afterpay, Zip, and then the rest of the followers. And any other examples out there you can think of, Ant Group, all of the big Stripe, all of the big fintech players, they dedicated their culture to technology, and that's one of the reasons they actually successful. So this session, I want to actually run through the aspects of the infrastructure that these fintech companies are actually using to their benefit. So today we're going to be talking about DevOps. We're going to be talking about MVP, which is minimum viable products. We're going to be having a chat about the software that the fintech companies are actually using. And also then we're going to have a look at practical examples in Python. So that's what we're aiming for today. And let's just dive right into the content for today. And what we're having here is what we call tech stack. You as a fintech specialist, you will definitely get exposed to these terms. So that's why I want you to get exposed to these terms right now, because the moment you get out of the education and complete your studies, you're gonna hit the ground running. And these terms are pretty much practical terms in the space of fintech. And that's why I want you to get exposed to it right now. In the old days, and I mean it like old days, like 2 years ago, we used to work on tech stack, and it's called tech stack because it's just got a stack of technologies on top of each other. So that's why it's called a stack. So there is a database, there is some software, there is some hardware, there's operating systems, web servers, databases, programming languages. This is a stack of things stacked on top of each other. So if you look at the marketplace right now, so for those of you here in computer science, you would want to be a full dev stack developer, right? What it means is you'll be able to understand each and every component of this stack. So you're not going to be the backend developer, you're not going to be the front end developer, you're going to be the full stack developer. And that is extremely important for fintech companies because is seeking your skills. And this is what used to be happening in the old days, where you have a server side, you have the internet, and where we're moving now, or where we are pretty much now, is the cloud. So this could be, say, AWS or Azure. So this is your cloud environment. And when you look at the languages like that are being used at the moment, obviously JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and native application, Python inclusive, and also Go. So this is Google Go that is currently in high demand. So what I'm introducing to you here is the notion of being a developer in computer science or being a graduate from computer science. It is, I believe, it is not sufficient to focus on just one aspect. What I mean by that, just say backend. You like servers, you like networking, you like databases, you focus on that. I think that's not sufficient. Highly paid positions at the moment in fintech space are seeking full stack developers. So that means that someone who actually operates across the board from top to the bottom of the tech stack. That's the reason I'm actually showing you this, because as a fintech practitioner, I'm very much into seeking these roles and seeking these skills, and I think that it's actually very difficult to get these skills out there in the market space at the very moment. So there's a good question from Gordon, the quant question. Yeah, of course, it's a definitely part of the stack, and I'll talk about it as we go deeper into the session. And that leads me to the natural evolution of technology. Again, this is not a theoretical history. I'm using Goldman Sachs global investment research source, but it's actually quite a practical way of looking at stuff. We used to be here about 80s, so this is 1980s, so last century. We used to operating client servers up to about 2020, 2018, I think. Even now, the client server is out there. Where we are definitely heading right now is cloud environment. No doubt, no question. Each and every one of the companies that's very successful is already operating either their own cloud or they are offloading their services into cloud service providers. And I'll talk about those guys shortly. Also, in terms of languages, so this is about 80s, this is 2018, Java now, and Python. So that's another reason why we're moving towards exposing into Python, because that's kind of where we are right now, cloud and Python. And I would say Google Go, Golang. So that's another upcoming language in this space. And then in terms of neural networks or programming, like what sort of a coding you have, in the old days, this is actually 18s. So again, AI is not new. So this is about 18s, 1980s. Deep learning is currently, and this is kind of where we're trying to get. I don't think we dare at all in terms of like a near human AI capabilities. This is where we are in terms of the current algorithms. So deep learning, Python, and cloud. So this is kind of where we're sitting from a tech perspective. So if you talk about fintech, this is the tech part. So this is what the financial technologies are actually moving into. Deep learning used Python as a software underneath, and then everything is hosted on the cloud. So there's a question about what is a legacy platform. And I'm gonna definitely get back to that. So I'll talk about the legacy platforms very shortly. I've took a snap of this specific shot. This is an important slide. Apologies, there is a lot of information and it's not clearly seen, but it's an important slide because what it does, it actually looks at the technology stack. And you can think of a Ant Financial as a fintech corporation, or Robinhood, or BRICS, or any of the companies that we introduced in the first sessions. I like it because it kind of puts us in the space where we are right now. So current era is a hybrid. So what it means is in the 70s and 80s, we used to be on the mainframe. Recently, we moved in the client server environment, and then slowly we're moving towards AI. So this is definitely the direction where we want to get into from a tech perspective. So we move mainframe, client server, hybrid, and AI kind of direction. So from left to right is the direction where we're moving in terms of technologies. From top to bottom and bottom to up, we are looking at these different attributes of the techie space, where we're gonna say, okay, let's look at the analytical tools. In the old days, we used to do SAS, and I think you guys even still use SPSS, MATLAB. I've heard that some of the guys using Hadoop. Yeah, I'll get back to that. PySpark, exactly. So as you can see, these are the old mainframe-driven softwares. As you see, we're moving to the client side. You still have SAS, and here suddenly today you have Locker, Docommerce, Salesforce, and then as you move forward, you have Google, Alibaba. All these players are kind of moving towards the machine learning. So all these analytical tools are heading towards ML and DL, which is the deep learning space. Programming languages. This is the reason why we're looking at Python. It's inevitable. It's moving into that direction. Also, databases and processing. Hadoop. So that goes to Gordon's question. What about Hadoop? Most definitely Hadoop. Everything is moving into non-SQL space. What that means is that in an SQL space, you have these columns and rows. So this is your database. In Hadoop, you're dealing with strings. So you have pages. It's like a book. You create a database and it's more like a book setup. Extremely powerful notion of not using graphic, even perfect, fantastic. Jeremy, just about to say that the GraphQL, I think, is going to take over most of the processes down the road, pretty soon, actually, I think. And that all links to what sort of the technologies the fintech companies or banks, actually, financial companies right now are exploring. So as we speak right now, there will be senior managers in the financial institutions looking at these aspects, right? So that's why I'm actually showing it to you. Same for data integration. What sort of information you have? Storage, Hadoop, cloud, all of these object-oriented programming and coding, and also the computing and components. So as you can see here, the graphical, anybody who is playing games here, like video games or computer PC games, will definitely know that the GPUs are much stronger than CPUs, which means the hardware component of computing at the moment, without talking about quantum computing. That's actually the idea. So you have these powerful simulators out there that we never had access to 2 years ago, actually. So what I'm showing on this slide is an important aspect of the technology. So fintech, the tech part is what we're looking for here. So these are the technologies that the successful companies are actually using. And I mean, all of these Hadoop, rational, non-rational, computing, these are the providers in that space. So this is the area. This is where we are right now, physically in the fintech space. If you look at another very important aspect of cloud computing, price. So what it means is that you and I can actually set up a business right now. We can actually match what investment banks are doing at the moment. What I mean by that is we can literally hire the computing capabilities as opposed to us buying the servers upfront, creating the environment upfront, which would be extremely expensive if you think about it. Even though it's cheaper now, but it will still cost a lot of money. What we can do is we can actually hire the environments. And what I'm showing you here is a bunch of examples with pricing, which is old, but still. that what you can do is you can basically hire on the cloud, you can hire these capabilities for computing, and then it's going to cost you like $14 per hour. So if you design your code and your scripts, and this is exactly what the smart fintech company operators are actually doing. So you need a big simulation, for instance, or big calculation. You need to simulate the pricing for your company. What you're going to do is, as opposed to buying these servers, you will find the optimal time. So in actual fact, New York time, about 4 a.m. New York time, is quite cheap. So what you do is you basically create your software and script that actually runs at that time on these cloud platforms, and that's how you minimize the costs. You will end up with delivering on the results, highly sophisticated capabilities, and at the same time, you're going to minimize the cost for you running the business. And that's just by you being smart operator in the space. And this is how most of the successful fintech operators actually think about using technology. And that's what I want you to think about using technology like. Don't think about using tech like go out there and buy servers and you leave the servers in your room. Think about utilizing the concepts of technologies that are being provided to you by other providers. And it's like outsourcing. So you're outsourcing all these capabilities at a reasonable cost, and then you're building services around that environment. And this is what fintech companies actually do in a successful space. Kensho, I gave you a bunch of the trading companies. Most of the traders are actually executing in this environment. So that's an example of the cloud solution. So again, focus on the technology stack and tech space. And here we had a number of questions in the past, Spark, Hadoop, deep learning, Kafka. Anybody heard anything about Kafka? No? Anybody? TensorFlow, have you guys heard about TensorFlow, Tiano, Caffe, Storm, any of these? PySpark? Yeah, here we go. So all of these, in actual fact, I think most of these are free. I mean, obviously, if you want to use the full extent of Hadoop, yeah, you need to fix that TensorFlow. Try to make sure that you can run it. We will not need it for this course. I actually want to introduce you to TensorFlow because I've been using it heavily, and I quite like it at the moment in terms of performance and what it can do. But my point being is, these are the toolboxes that are currently available to you. You and I, right now, is sitting here, just about to graduate. There is no reason why we shouldn't be using it. Literally, there is no reason why we shouldn't be using these tools that are freely available out there for you and I to use. And free. What I mean by that are free. This is actually, you don't pay anything for using these highly sophisticated programming languages. So that's why I'm actually showing you these things, so we can actually gain understanding that what I'm talking about here is, say, Afterpay providers, Zip providers, or Kensho providers, is actually really possible to execute on our side. So even your fintech proposal, I don't want you to think about fintech proposal as something that is unreasonably impossible to do. I actually want you to think about your fintech proposal as if we were to do it. As if you and I are actually sitting here discussing this and say, okay, let's start to focus on Kafka, which is a messaging system that is high frequency driven text processor, and we can build everything around that space, and it's free. So that's the reason I'm actually showing you this, and that's why I'm actually, as you potentially see, that's why I'm so excited about these environments, because we can actually do it. And that's why I would like to encourage you, when in your fintech proposal, don't just tell me we're going to be using machine learning. Please don't do that, because that's not enough. First of all, everybody's doing it. And secondly, I need to understand that you understand that it's possible to do using these different tools. And these are the toolboxes, the list of the toolboxes that I'm giving you to actually have a look at. So don't memorize any of this. It's just really practical aspect today, okay? So that's what I'm after. And again, I'm stating something very obvious here. Why do you think tech fins are taking over the world? Say Google or Amazon, they entering the finance space. Well, simple, right? Access to data rather than money. And this is becoming extremely contentious environment at the moment. I would encourage you to read this paper that's written by UNSW team as well as HKU, Hong Kong University. It's very well written in the space of regulatory area. And I'm referencing it as we go along the first 3 weeks. So I will encourage you to really understand the power of tech fin versus the power of fintech. I know it sounds funny when we're mentioning this, but I think it's very important to understand that there could be disruptors. They're going to be disrupting the actual disruptors. This is a never-ending cycle given the technologies that we have access to. So I really want you to think about, tech fins. And good example is, again, the fintech proposal. So I'm coming back to the fintech proposal. I had teams asked that they put themselves inside banks. So as opposed to creating their own company, they ended up creating their own team within, say, Commonwealth Bank, and then they were able to actually deliver on a project. I am yet to see someone putting themselves into a Google team or Amazon team. Interestingly, right? But I want you to think in that way. I want you to position yourself into, say, one of the Ant or Tencent in Asia, in China, or Alibaba Group, Ant Financial, or position yourself into a team in Google, maybe Google, why not? And say, okay, we are fintech specialists inside Google, and we're going to deliver on solutions for finance dedicated businesses. So that's another angle that I need you to explore. And as Jeremy said, yeah, exactly. The big techs got massive advantage at the moment because they are harvesting the data from us for free. So you and I giving data to Facebook, you and I giving data to Google for free. They pay nothing for it. And what it means is that they are able to accumulate a lot of profiles, and they are able to calculate and create a lot of knowledge that is hidden. It's very unique to them. So that's a big advantage, not only for those tech companies then start to offer business propositions or financial services or banking services, assuming they can push it into the banking license. And as you can see, that it's got a massive flow-on effect. And hence my point, because we are finance graduates, I truly believe we have to understand the technological aspects and the change, because you might end up working for Google or Amazon or Apple, creating their own banking environment. And that's what I need you to think through your fintech proposals. And perfect point. They a lot of capital. They're extremely well funded, even better funded than most of the banks. Actually, they're bigger than most of the banks on the street, and they will decimate competition. They are ruthless, as you can see the little picture there. So that's what I'm highlighting to you. That is the state of affairs where we are operating at the moment. So as a practitioner, given this is a practical session for today, I'm trying to highlight these areas for you. And as I can see, some of you guys are really on the ball and really understand the dynamics, which is very, very important. So that's why we're actually highlighting these components. Very quickly, let me go through, then we'll take a break. What I'm showing you here is a point of the development where there is, and again, going back to the paper that I highlighted to you, which is this here. This is the stage of life of a TechFin. So it's a data broker. Again, you can think of Amazon or Alibaba or Ant Financial. Vertical integration, that's what they started to do, and that's where we are right now. Horizontal diversification. You see all these TechFins taking over the financial system. And also you see the government institutions stepping in to slow it down, such as a very good example of Ant Group in China that's kind of held back by government because of the regulatory worries. So that is where the very important balancing act is happening right now. lots of regulators are stepping in and understanding that there is a problem. There is a potential risk and potential problem. All right, guys, what I suggest we do is big tech, exactly. What I suggest to do is let's take a break. Let's take 8 minutes break. So we meet up again at 4 p.m. And then I'm going to continue with the seminar. A couple of points I want to make as we go along, and then I give you space. We might run a bit of a quick chat down the road before we move into our workshop. All right, so about 8 minutes break. I'll see you back online at 4 p.m. Okay, 4 p.m. back online. All right, team, let's get back into business. Let's get back online. That was a quick refreshment break. Look, I want to continue again this session. Then we take another break before our workshop, where I want to kind of point you towards in this sub-session is again following the fintech proposal. So the idea of this course is to really get you exposed to fintech, but in a really sophisticated way. So what I mean by that is, what are the opportunities now? Really read the map, read the ecosystem of finance, and try to understand what can actually be disrupted. And what I mean by that is that there are still plenty of opportunities for disruption. And it's going to be you guys. It's going to be you that's going to be out there entering these industries, whether it's finance, banking, or anything else, consulting, or any other space. You will have the leading role in making the change, and it's accelerating. So that doesn't matter whether you just associate or just intern in an organizations. You just feel free to step in and make a change. So I'm actually imploring you to do that. And coming as a practitioner and being able to talk to you in this sense, I will always implore you to push the boundaries in a sophisticated, smart way to deliver on enhanced value, because there is plenty of opportunities out there for disruption. And what I want to highlight to you in this slide is the fact that if you focus on a couple of attributes, again, leading you, I'll get back to you, Peter, on that. So leading you into thinking about your fintech proposal. So say fintech proposal, what else can be disrupted? Think conceptually. Anything that reduces transaction costs is still available for disruption. So anything that you're going to decrease transaction costs in the operations, so banking, online banking, suddenly there is zero cost, so the customer don't pay anything. So anything that you can reduce costs will always be prone for disruption. Also, improved business and risk management. Risk management will become very important, especially post the COVID area. The COVID is very likely going to be with us. Yeah, good question. I'll Frida, I'll answer that. Same like Uber, same like Robinhood. You don't pay any costs for your trading, so there is zero commission. Same like your Uber Eats, free delivery. All of these are examples of how fintech companies are able to use technology and regulatory gaps to explore. So it's a combination of these two. What I was highlighting to you is a risk. So risk management, I believe, is going to be really in high demand going forward. And also, this is an important one, financial inclusion. And that is a huge space. Personalized recommendations. So for someone who's got a banking account, or say Commonwealth Bank offering this application for budgeting, where they're going to be personalizing the recommendation. Boom, that's an instantaneous use. But also, this is someone who's never been using a bank. So think about someone who's never been ever using a bank. For us, everybody here online, it's kind of unusual because we are exposed to this, right? So everybody here very likely has got a bank account and been dealing with banking institutions. But there is a huge population out there that they've never been relying on any bank. So they don't even have a bank account. So those are people that they need assistance, they need help, and that's another space where unbanked are being offered financial access. A very good example of this is Amazon. So Amazon offered a credit card that actually teaches someone with zero credit or no banking skills how to look at money, how to save, how to return, how to get into the environment. So that's a big space for the fintech companies to actually move into. And then regulation, anything related to regulation, this is what we call RegTech. So this is a space, it's a unique space of fintech. So kind of an umbrella, fintech covers all these different techie spaces. So RegTech, it's a big opportunity there where everybody is going to be required to go through KYC, AML. I'll talk about this space a bit more. So this slide is kind of giving you a bit of a hint on where the recent events are offering opportunities for your fintech proposal. So think about it that way. A couple of questions online. So I'll get back to you on the free financing. So we're actually going to be looking at Robinhood as a use case. We've been watching Robinhood for the past 2 years, and it's a really good use case in fintech, especially right now. For Peter, do you think having advanced coding skills is no? It's not. So where I was hinting, or what I was hinting to, or where I was heading towards in fintech space, is the combination of diversity is what really creates value in fintech. So yes, you need someone with advanced coding skills who might never be exposed to business. And what I mean by that is, C++ programmers, computer science, pure computer science engineers, data scientists. They would be really good at one part of that puzzle. At the same time, you might need someone who is actually dedicated to marketing or management or lawyers, law, or arts. Any of these versions and combination of these skills actually going to create value. So what the magic of fintech is, I think, is that you can combine these skill sets together and actually create something of greater value than potentially the current banks are able to do. So that's what I mean. So if you ask me whether you need super duper C++ coding skills, no, definitely not. What you want though is you want to be able to talk to someone who is really exceptional in the coding. And what I mean by talk is actually translate and understand. So that's what really the fintech skills are needed. And I'm seeing it out there in the industry where you can have a really good coder and you can have a really good salesman or saleswoman out there, but they are not able to talk to each other. They don't understand each other very well. So the fintech is bridging that. That's what I'm heading to. Same with mathematics, physics, biology, chemistry, any of the hard sciences. Extremely valuable background for fintech, quite frankly. So all of these skills are very much transferable into fintech space. The technology aspect is bringing everything together. So my point being is you can be a mathematician, PhD level mathematics, and you will be able to be part of the team. But in order to operate in fintech, you will need to be someone who actually comprehends the business, understands the finance component of it. So the finance, I believe, plays a very important role. I will never discount the financial theories, ever. You will hear me talking about the finance theories as we go along, quite a lot. Technology is very important. It will change. Tech space will always change. The laws, the rules, supply, demand, pricing, asset pricing, all of those are embedded. It's a human behavior aspect that is very likely to change, but not as fast as the technological advances. So my suggestion is, yes, okay, if you want to be C++ coder, dedicate your time into it. You will be definitely needed. But if you want to operate in fintech space, you don't need to be necessarily dedicated to coding. You need to understand it though. And that's my point. It is putting more pressure on us, the finance and commerce graduates, because I'm trying to tell you that we do need to understand the coding component. We do need to be tech savvy. And what I mean by tech savvy, again, is not just using iPhone. What I mean by tech savvy is to comprehend the algorithms, understand the mathematics, understand the technology, really understand the application of these tools as toolboxes. So hopefully that helps. All I'm saying is no, you don't need to be a top coder, but you do need to understand it. If you don't, you're missing a big part of the space that's moving very, very fast. And that's literally this next slide tells you quite a lot about the entities in the fintech. This is actually old. I'm still using it because I think it's relevant still. So it's 3 years old, but makes sense. And what I'm showing you here is exactly to your question, like what sort of skills do we need? So lots of the fintech startups There's lots of the platforms in social media, financial institution, techie companies, e-retailers. So all this combination of these skill sets will create the ecosystem for fintech companies. And a bunch of the bulletins, feel free to look at it. I'll just go through his research very quickly, just to back up my my arguments with you. Fintech space, everybody consider fintech to be payments only, which is not true. So payments, banking, insurance, asset and wealth management, all of these blocks, these silos in finance are being disrupted. And as you can see, this is kind of heading towards more activities. At the moment, InsurTech is very hot topic out there. And also what I've been seeing recently is wealth tech. Lots of investment platforms being changed and reshuffled because of the technology. So this is about 3 years ago, and it's still very, very relevant in terms of research. Another very important part of the techie space. So again, I'm staying on the tech form. What actually is being used as a technology? So again, technology is not a computer in my world, or not an iPhone, or new earphones, or new glasses. In my speak, the technology is everything related to algorithms. So data analytics, mobile, AI, cybersecurity, robotics, all of these are the technologies that the fintech companies are using at the moment. So remember we talked about the biometrics, that's a tech. Also blockchain, so this is the hard space. Blockchain, artificial intelligence, and biometrics, still in high demand in the fintech space. Still a very important area. And as you can see, these are the large fintech companies, these are the large financial institutions, these are large fintech companies, and these are the large financial institutions. So large fintech companies just going really sharp in the blockchain space, are really investing into artificial intelligence, are really investing into biometrics, as opposed to the currently established financial institutions. So that's the opportunity gap. So that's, I'm imploring you to have a look at market space, and just don't be afraid to apply for a fintech company, even though it's a startup, even though it's like a player in the industry. If they're successful, they're very well funded. You will be focused on that, what really matters, because they do understand the environment potentially much better than the established players, which are getting better. So that's my point. Very quickly, everybody talks about AI, right? I've been talking to you about AI, big hype, fintech AI, sounds really cool. Well, again, I just need to highlight a couple of points. Anybody heard about Andrew Ng? He's the Stanford professor. Exactly. That's exactly my point. So you have to watch out that if and not if is not AI. So that is exactly what I'm not talking about. So everybody's talking about AI. If you run into a lot of projects, you know, the AI that's called AI is actually not. It's just a simple algorithm. So that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is something that is being kind of put forward by Andrew Ng and his team, and that is actually asking the companies to really explore the AI. I can tell you for a fact, as a practitioner, again, just a bit of a story. I was working on a project pretty recently with one of the big financial institutions, and what were we looking at is, yeah, that's right. He's got the free machine courses for university, and then also you have to pay for his courses. And I recommend it because I've done it myself, and I'm a big fan. So feel free to do it. But my point being is, that as a practitioner, recently I've been working for a financial institution. We've been looking at a project that is actually looking at an NLP, so natural language processing. And what we did is we looked at all the legal documentation that the bank has been generating and consuming, and we were looking at algorithmic solution that we would be able to use, that we would be able to write these documents ourselves, like algorithmically, and also consume and produce these documents automatically. So that's an instantaneous use of what we call a sophisticated algorithm, which is natural language processing based algorithmic solution, which is kind of getting closer to the correct name of AI. And to Gordon's point, yeah, definitely the first course in Stanford on Coursera is still using Octane. The new courses that are being offered by his team are definitely on Python. So if you want to dive deeper, you do need to have the Python skills to do that. My point here, better product, more users, more data, vicious circle. Sometimes it works, most of the time it doesn't. But you do need to consider it, and I'm imploring you to do it. I've actually seen chief AI officers, not very common as yet, not very common, but I'm starting to see companies creating new roles, and that's banks. So currently in banks, you see CDO. Anybody knows what CDO is? Chief Data Officer. So banks already offering these. CAO, Chief Analytics Officer, or Chief AI Officer. So I think we're gonna end up in these roles. It's not as common at the moment, but I truly believe that maybe some of you guys might stepping into these roles in a couple of years' time. So we're gonna see that. I truly believe we're gonna see that sooner than later, I think. So anyway, this is again pushing it towards your fintech proposal. Try to think about this space, and not just like, hey, you know, it's a hype, but actually, where do you place it? Where do you place that role? Is somebody in your team going to be chief AI officer, for instance? And what is the role? And that leads me to the coding and DevOps. So I promised you at the beginning that we're going to have a look at why some of these companies are successful. And what I mean by that is you have to deliver a very complex product. That product might be highly structured, very complicated, using algorithmic solutions, e-commerce platforms, any of those solutions out there. What you're trying to do is to deliver on this product, not only once off, but actually to support this product during its lifetime. So that's what the fintech actually does. So if you think about fintech as a product, right? So what the fintech company actually offers? So say Afterpay, they're offering a payment platform. So you're gonna get the money free, and then if you pay in 4 installments, everybody's happy. So what does it actually, what does it do under the hood? And that's what we're asking here. So how can you actually ensure that that platform, Afterpay, stays operational with no issues, no dramas, no dilemmas, no crashes? But recently there was a number of crashes online. And what I did here is look at the Agile Scrum methodology. I need you to be exposed to this because fintech operate in this space. Fintech, at least the companies that I've been talking to, are really embedded, and they're utilizing what we call Agile Scrum methodology. And what it does here, very quickly, I'm going to run through this and explain the methodology. Why? Because I really think that the toolbox that I gave you at the start, when you combine the toolbox with the skills of the team, and you create this agile environment, you will be able to handle extremely complex projects. And as a practitioner, I've seen a lot of very complex projects to fail simply because we were not, or the teams were not really driven to push the boundaries. One reason is missing the agile methodology approach, where you, as I very quickly explained to you what it does, is very handy and I think very relevant. Recently, I actually seen the agile methodology thinking move towards management. So what it means is it's not being used only in the development teams or technology teams, but it's actually starting to be used by management teams, the business. So the business side is taking over this methodology and tries to apply this methodology to the digital world. And that's the reason I want you to get exposed to it. And lastly, because it works. And as a practitioner, I've been using it myself, and it makes perfect sense. And a couple of points I want to highlight to you. Even in your projects, you will not have chance to go through this, but even in your fintech proposal, think about it. What it does is you have a couple of team members that are important, what we call the product owner. So that's someone who actually deals with the customer. So this is the customer feedback. Someone sits there, understands the customer. It could be actual end customer, it could be actually the client of the developers, and they have a relationship with the customer. Then the job of the product owner is to put together a list. So the customers will tell the product owner what's important in terms of priorities. And this is what we call product backlog. So you deliver on a product backlog, right? So you're going to end up with this little big list. It could be like a big solid list, say 100 items, and those are the tasks or the functionality that the customer wants, right? So in a fintech space, you can imagine, again, Afterpay, we want to change the color of this screen, or we want to add additional screen, or we want to simplify the payment structure. So those are the things I'm talking about here. Once this product owner collects this information, this is actually continuous, but say once we establish a milestone, then we move into what we call the planning stage. And this is the teamwork. This is why I'm very excited about the teams. Because what you do is, as a product owner, you collect the team, and that team consists of everything. So it includes functionalities, it includes new and old, and bugs, and current and new features. So it's split into the product backlog is split into new functionality, old functionality, bug or task, or new feature, old feature. You can cut it into different boxes. And then you meet the team, and the team is important here. So the team here is basically a team of developers, quants. Remember, we had a question about where do we put the quant team. The quants actually sits here. So the quant team will be here, the pricers, or the tech team, the C++ coder, the hardcore coding gurus, gonna be sitting in that team. It's a combination of teams. There is gonna be lawyers. So I had lawyers, the law representation. I have sales sitting in here in the team. I have sales personnel. I have lawyers. I have all the different accountants. They're very important players in fintech. So this is the team, and it could be maybe eight people as a team member sitting together. And what you do is you go through what we call a sprint planning. And a sprint can usually be about 2 weeks. Right, so you split the task into the priorities, which is the backlog, and then you split the task into windows of time. So every 2 weeks, you're gonna run what we call sprints, and these sprints are driving the development. So every 2 weeks, you have these 2-week sprints, and you forward moving to delivery into the entire project. So you cut the project into this mosaic of backlog and time, and that's how you can move and roll forward. So once you have this big meeting, every hour, every day, you have what we call stand-ups. And it's actually called stand-ups because you don't sit. You have a meeting, so in online, you will be chatting. We will be touching base every day. Say, okay, what went wrong? What was okay? What wasn't? Is there a problem? So every single day, we're going to have these meetings, and we're going to touch base on what's happening in terms of deliveries and how we can actually move forward. If someone has got a problem on a team, put more pressure and more resources on that specific area to solve it. And that's how we can move forward. And then once you complete a sprint, so every 2 weeks, there is another session together, which is the whole team. And then what we do there is we run what we call retrospect. So every 2 weeks, we look back what we've done, what we've delivered, where we failed, and how have we assessed the difficulty and complexity of the task. By doing that, we learn. So we learn, say, someone was reading spreadsheets or doing a facial recognition or biometrics, and it failed. So what we do is we learn as a team, and then the next sprint, we assign a higher complexity to that task. So someone who is going to be looking at it would need to be more advanced, so say C++ coder, or would need to be like an AI data scientist or engineer who will be able to assist with that task. And again, going forward, then you move and you are able to be agile. So this is why it's called agile, because you are able to adjust to the complexities of the task. So that is the reason why I truly believe that agile methodology as a practitioner is actually helping me to deliver on projects. But also, reason I'm showing you this as a practitioner again is to expose you to this, because in fintech space, that's how we deal with complexities. These issues are very complex. You've seen number of items, Commonwealth Bank, the application, trading application fell off. Or you've seen the recent neobanks. Tyro wasn't able to process payments for a couple of days. JP Morgan fell off. All of these aspects are pretty much very live. So that's just a very quick introduction to agile methodology. You can do licenses in this stuff. You can be like a guru and stuff like that. But the reason I'm exposing you to it is because you will hear about this once you hit the ground running out there in the industry. Important component, a very important concept. In actual fact, UNSW has got 2 successful graduates setting up Atlassians. So in case you haven't heard about these guys, have a look at them. So it's a $1 billion business, very successful business. And what they do is exactly this. They're building tools that can help. Again, staying on the actual technology side, DevOps. Why suddenly DevOps becoming very important? And I want to talk to you about this again because the tech space. And you had a question like, why are we using Python? So Python sits here. So this is what we do here in this current session. I'm introducing you just to Python, right? What I'm showing you here is any other tools that are available to the fintech companies. All of these tools, some of them you have to pay, but most of these tools are actually free. So you just download it and you put it all together, and you can run through a life cycle of an application. Again, you can think about Afterpay, right? How do you make sure that the Afterpay ticks, actually stays online and processes the payments, does the right thing? This is how you do it. You basically have this environment around it that is controlled by the DevOps team. And the reason why it's called DevOps team is because in the past, we used to have team of developers, so say 20 plus, team of quality assurance, and team of operations. So those were the 3 development teams. Now it's all merged together. It's what we call DevOps. You need to be able to respond instantaneously to any change on your platform. That's what I mean by speeding up. And that's why the fintech companies are actually being successful, and financial, extremely successful in delivering highly complex environments because of this, because of their ability to combine these resources, because of their ability to be flexible and agile in responding to change. Man, I can talk about this for hours. Very quickly, without me really diving deep into it. But say we code something. So we have a fintech proposal. We code something as a Python code. We're gonna build it. Then we're gonna test it as an application. We're gonna release it. We're gonna deploy it. We're gonna operate, monitor, and plan. And then we're gonna go back where we started. That's the life cycle of an application. You can again think about it. Zip or Afterpay is a good example that pops up in mind, where you have these control mechanisms in place. I'm explaining it to you as a business person to a coder, but if you're a developer, you would really understand this very well, because you're going to be practicing it. So you're going to become a practitioner in this space. In a university space, why are we talking about? Again, I'm talking about it because it's a practical aspect of fintech, and I need you to be exposed to it. You will definitely get exposed to it when you get out. Even in a bank, you will definitely get exposed. I guarantee you're gonna hear about this, even if you are a consultant in a non-finance related industry. And then very lastly, before diving into the more intricate aspects of this session, if you ask me how I would actually recommend you to set up a company, start with the data lake. So what it means is you start with the data lake, you dive into and import and consume information from different sources. You have engines underneath, and then you basically end up with the applications on the front of it. This is how what I've seen personally, most successful fintech companies are arranged like, which means totally different to standard environments. It's a data lake, your consumptions of information, your engines, and then very light application. Just an example and thinking process for you guys to think through. Very quickly now, code development. Again, this is why I'm showing you this, where we are now with Python. That's the only tiny little thing that we're covering. There is a lot of processes. You build, you test, you package, you release, configure, and monitor, and then you actually go back into the beginning. So this is just not where we are right now in terms of the fintech interaction. It's just an idea. What I'm showing you here is an example of, okay, we agree with the idea. How do we actually roll it out? Can we actually implement the idea that we just decided in our fintech proposal? That's where we're heading in these couple of slides, telling you about, what's the next stage. You need to build the product. So what we call minimum viable product, so MVP. Yeah, fine, you have a great idea. Who cares? There is a lot of teams with great ideas. Can you show it? Can you actually have a tangible example? I'm not asking you to do that in these 10 weeks. It's impossible. We just don't have enough time. But for successful fintech companies, it is not sufficient to have just an idea and nice presentation. For most companies, generally speaking, it is very important to get tangible. So what it means is you need to build something that actually is sellable at the same time. This used to be called minimum viable product. Now it's actually called minimum sellable product, MSP, as opposed to using MVP. Now it's actually used MSP, so that is minimum sellable product. So that means that you're able to gain revenue. Minimum viable product, who cares? You are unable to lock in business. Yeah, bad luck. Minimum sellable product, you are able to run a revenue on it. That makes a difference. Again, there is a number of different stages that we won't go through in detail here, but all important if you were to implement your fintech proposal, right? So we are not doing it, but that's kind of where I'm heading with this. Not only in the coding and development, which is the Python stage, it's also the prototype MVP, it's also the demonstration, it's also what we call the pilot stage, where you can start to sell the product, also the user acceptance, where you getting the users to actually use it, and also finally the production rollout. Can you actually move it into production with no issues? All of these steps are absolutely critical for fintech companies to be successful. Again, Afterpay or Zip, any of those companies are a very good example. And what it means is that they are able to deliver on that product in a technology digital space, right? So this is what it is. It's in the old days, manufacturers, you manufacturing the app, that's your product, in the digital space. In the old days, you build cars, like Tesla is building cars. They're going through all these different stages in order to deliver a car. For your case in fintech space, you building a product and you delivering these stages so you can build the car. It's more complex because of regulation. So the RegTech will be coming back all the time. And in this last part, I want to move to link it back to what we call data governance. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. So the next couple of slides, we went through kind of the technology stack, right? So I expose you to tech stack and tell you why fintech companies are actually successful. What sort of tools is out there currently available for free? Everybody, you and I can do it, right? And the fintech companies actually utilizing any of it, and banks utilizing any of these. Then we moved into the compilation of, okay, once we do that, we have an idea how do we actually roll it out. So we looked at the minimum viable product, minimum sellable product, and end up here where we're saying that in order to bring it up to the production level, you need to go through these stages to protect against failures, but also to protect your customers, to make sure that the application works very well. So as you can see, it is not just having a fintech proposal, it's actually quite a lot of work around how you can bring it up to the production space. Where I'm going to be leaving now and where I'm going to be heading now is data governance. So in this section, before finishing off, then we're going to have a bit of a discussion actually. I want to dump you to groups and have a bit of a chat about specifically about data governance. It's becoming very important aspect of fintech, especially fintech. So this, why I'm highlighting it? Because of fintech proposal. What I need you to do in the fintech proposal is to actually focus on data governance. Whatever you offer, whatever product you're working on, make sure that you at least invest one slide into how you're protecting the data of your clients, customers, or how are you actually dealing with data governance. The reason for that is absolutely critical. If you're going to get breached, say a cyber security threat, you lose the data of your clients, the business can go bankrupt because of that. So it's very, especially in fintech space, because we're dealing with finances and highly sophisticated trading strategies or whatever the product is, it is extremely important to protect the privacy of your clients, protect the data, and set up a governance structure. So that's the reason I'm actually highlighting it here. And I'm going to go through these slides very quickly, but don't underestimate it. You need to actually put these protections in your presentation. So data governance, data integrity, what it actually is, what do you understand under the data integrity, what it actually means, and how you can actually incorporate it into your project. So I'm actually explaining what it actually consists of. All of this is very important for you when you're running a fintech project, right? So that's why I'm mentioning it. A bunch of ideas on what I'm actually talking about here. Say, very good example of that is digitization. So what it means is you're collecting data from customers in a written form, and you're storing this information. So examples of that is collection of great and variety customer data, purchase history, browsing. So you're harvesting this information in your data storage. How do you protect it? What do you do with it? How can you actually ensure that it's protected in your environment? Same robotics, biometrics. So these are very good examples of the fintech infrastructure and how fintech is pushing towards the data governance. I need to stress this to you because it is very important aspect of fintech, and I think it will become more important as we go along. As you probably know, in recent events with Facebook here in Australia or Google here in Australia, all about data. So it's becoming a very, very contentious issue as we go along. Again, for your presentation, customers, identify who your customer, identify who your policymakers are, identify your business, and put yourself in that space. Data landscape is absolutely critical. You might end up working for a bank in a data department, which is a very important job actually. Incumbents. So basically, this is a bank, and this is a fintech organization. And then we're going through all these toolboxes, what I call toolboxes in the fintech space. Read through these slides. These are very important aspects for your fintech proposal, right? And now I move very quickly into a space of a very simple use case. What I mean by that is a company, Simply Wall Street, which is here in Sydney. A very cool business. I really like these guys. We had the product manager and product owner presenting to us a couple of months ago, and I tried to get the CEO to come over and have a chat. Have a look at them online now. Actually, what they do. It's a it's a very, very cool business as a fintech business. And that's what I want to introduce to you as a really cool idea for business. What they do very quickly is pretty cool notion of looking at institutional quality data. So you can think of Reuters or Bloomberg, right? Like a data streams. Then looking at adding some really analytical models, highly sophisticated models, and then also then delivering on very cool graphics. So what they're doing is they look at the wholesale companies or wholesale level of data, and they're moving that into retail, right? And this is all data. So what they're dealing with is data. So all of this is just data points. It could be numerics. It could be structured, unstructured, any kind of data, news, information about the company, collecting this institutional quality, putting some really sophisticated analytical models to it, and then very nice graphics, as you can see here, and then offering these to customers. And you as a customer can open an account, you can put and create your own portfolio, you can put the stocks and try to look at and learn about the market. So I'm a big fan of this company. I like it. I'll try to get the CEO to have a chat with us if he can. Let's see. Everybody's busy, but that's what the business is all about. And what I want you to think about and what I want you to discuss, I'll give you 5 minutes. So I'll try to put you in a groups. See how we go. Dump you in a groups of say five of you, and what I'm asking you to do is have a chat. So I'll introduce to you this fintech company, which is Simply Wall Street. They specializing in providing very nice visuals on highly sophisticated data streams. And what I want you to think about is you are a bank manager. So you are the decision maker in a bank, right? So imagine you're sitting in a Commonwealth Bank on a board of director level. So you are senior executive director in a bank. And you learn about this fintech company, right? So you learn about this Simply Wall Street. What I want you to discuss is, what about the customer data? Can you actually link the customer data that you have in a bank with this business, right? And what do you need to achieve that? Can you create something similar? Can you use their service? What is the data governance framework, and what are the privacy issues that you would be encountering? So it's a pretty complex question. I had this question posed to senior managers in a number of the Chinese banks, and we had really fierce discussion about this. What I want to do is, so the question is, just so everybody's on the same board, I'll dump you into breakout rooms very shortly, but the question is, I've introduced to you the Simply Wall Street. Very cool idea. Have a look at them online. And what I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to put yourself in a position of executive director in a bank, right? So what it means is that you are the lead. You could be CEO of a Commonwealth Bank. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of senior director of a bank and look at the Simply Wall Street business, and then combine it with your customer data, your bank customer data. Can you do that? Can you combine these two businesses? And what do you need to protect your customer data? All right, very, very hard question actually. So what I'll do is I move you into a bunch of groups, 10 or 6, so five guys, random assignment. So I'll just randomly assign you to groups, and I'll get you back in 5 minutes. So it's 4:45. I'll get you back 4:50. Okay, so 5 minutes. I'm moving you into groups right now, and then after that, I will open the forum for you, right? So the floor is open. We can have a bit of a chat. Very hard question. So 5 minutes. All right, team. Got you back into the main room. Not much activity out there, was it? How did you go? Did you have a chance to chat amongst each other? Getting you back online. So we might wait for the rest of the teams coming back online. So how did you guys go? Did you have a chance to have a chat? At least that was actually quite a difficult question, to be honest. Anybody out there who wants to just add some points or comments? Don't be shy. Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, so our team sort of discussed how it's pretty similar to, similar in nature to a lot of the portfolio apps that are out there at the moment, like Raise, where you can set up a account and link it up with your, I don't know, Combank or Comsec trading app, for example. But yeah, one of the issues we sort of realized was it's a paid service to get a lot of the premium features as well. So I don't think linking up like the other apps have as well would work, just because there's an extra paid feature on this one. So it could potentially be a buy for a specific bank to implement it more effectively.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and that's exactly where I wanted to steer you into the direction. That's a very good point, Peter. That's a very good discussion. Anybody out there wants to step in and add a bit more, and then I'll tell you a bit more about. Yes, Lachlan?
Yeah, I was in Peter's group as well. One other thing I quickly want to add, which I didn't mention while we're in the group, is that when we're talking about whether it would be possible to link this data with our customer data, it reminded me a bit of the open banking initiative in Australia, and whether through those sort of new rules and regulations, that is what could potentially open this sort of technology and implementation up, where previously it would have been really constrained by really private banking data.
Yeah, excellent points. Anybody out there wants to add, and then I'll expand on your points. Jeremy?
Okay, I don't know if I get the question correctly, but I remember like Zip has like this thing called like a pocketbook, right? And then it has like you can link your bank details on, but I think Macquarie Group has released like APIs to for read access to bank data, customer data. So I was like thinking that might be rising as well within banks.
Yeah, excellent. I think excellent, very good point, guys. You are heading in definitely in the right direction, because this is where I wanted to steer the thinking and what's happening at the very moment. We will come back to the open banking and the whole environment, especially in Australia. Actually, I think it's next week where I'm going to introduce you to that space. Very important for banks. What I really wanted to mention to you as well, so that's the right direction. That's definitely what's happening right now, where the data that the banks possessing are kind of getting out there into the space, not only in terms of the banking products or established financial institution products, but also persons like unique individuals or companies, right? So that data points are being offered out there. And just a note, as again practitioner, so this was a fairly complex questions. I had a bunch of the sessions with the senior executives in a number of the Chinese banks, actually, in Hong Kong, a year ago or something, 2 years and a half ago, before the pandemic, and we had a chat exactly on this line, like what's happening with the data, what's happening with the pricing, what's happening with the fintech, and how fintech is actually going to expose the financial institutions to be more efficient, right? Forcing them to be more efficient. But where we ended up is exactly looking at these data, customer data protections and privacy. And what I was really impressed with the discussions at that time was that the banks realizing it, so the senior executives in the bank were really on the ball and realizing that the only thing that will be left for the banks is the privacy of the data, right? Not only privacy is in terms of protection, but that they own as a possession, right? Anything else is just going to get priced away. It's commoditized, right? Everything else is just going to get commoditized, and what's left out there for a bank to be a bank is basically protection of the regulator, and potentially the deposits, and that's it. So for them, the possession of and the protection of the data is becoming extremely fierce. So what you are highlighting out there is a very important point, because you and I, we're looking at this from the fintech perspective, right? For us being able to take advantage of these opportunities, and the regulators opening up the banking industry, and that's where we operate. We really like it. So maybe some of you guys are going to end up working for a bank, and you're going to be looking at it from their perspective, protecting their environment. That's why these questions are very difficult to resolve as we speak right now, but are becoming very important in fintech. So that's why I wanted to steer up this discussion, and you guys are going definitely in the right direction. So I'm very happy to hear that, actually, on that note. Again, I can talk about this for ages, but let's say that this was very good discussion that we had open forum. I'm gonna be doing more of these as we go closer to our use cases and stuff. So the couple of next weeks we're gonna have a lot of discussions as we go along. So well done, guys. Highly appreciate it. What I recommend to do is actually shift a couple of gears and take a break before. Let's take about 5 minutes break. Just a bit of a refreshment, non-alcoholic, right? No beers or any of those. And then we're gonna go for a workshop. And in the workshop, I want to run you through a practical example of looking at a Visa and Afterpay. Our case studies are assessed in the exam next week. Case studies. Yeah, I think so. Anything that we've covered in terms of the notes, everything that we covered in week 1, 2, and 3 is inclusive. Yeah, that's a good question there, Jeremy. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you have any question in coding, just stop me and I can focus on that. And it's not helping just you, it's helping everybody else online as well. So yeah, feel free to step in and have a chat. Yeah, good point. All right, look, guys, let's take a 5 minutes break because I'm cautious of time, and let's get back into the workshop right after this. All right, so we finish up this session here and then dive into the workshop. I have a bunch of examples for you to go through. So see you in 5 minutes. Okay, team, back in business. Let's get this done. I know it is a very demanding time for us to be like this online. It requires a lot of attention. So I'm fully aware of it. So the university set up this three-hour window for us. But look, I want to change the speed here. And as you know, this is kind of the last session together. It's more like a workshop. So again, there was a question whether we should ask. Yeah, feel free. Any questions you have about coding and about programming. I've explained the reasons why we're heading towards Python and what we looking for. And what we're going to do now is just dive into the session today. And today I want to actually show you a couple of practical aspects. I'm going to focus on spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets. So I'm going to show you a couple of those and how you can consume the data into Python. That's what I want to focus on today. The reason is because we are used to working with spreadsheets, and that's one. And second, you will likely still work with spreadsheets in the in the environment out there. When you graduate, unfortunately. But at the same time, I wanna show you a couple of skills that might be helpful out there. And on that note, I'm going back to Moodle, so hopefully you can see my screen. And I'm going down to the sample code. We've downloaded and went through these first three. I want you to download pretty much all of these here, you know, pricing, regression, market price, local, and forward price. So download all of these samples into your machine, whether you're using Anaconda, whether you're using any other platforms, as I explained to you before, no worries. Ultimately, we will cover for the rest of the weeks together. We're gonna cover each and every one of these codes together, right? So that's the approach. These sample codes are used to build up your skills and understanding of Python, the syntax, the usage, and then these sample codes are more applied versions of the algorithms that I've been talking to you about. You know, machine learning, AI, all that hype. I want to show you what it actually is and how it looks in Python space, right? So that's what I need you to do today. I have a bit of a challenge for you as well. So for those of you who are more advanced, I have a bit of a challenge, and it's pretty techy challenge. Also, I want you to download these Afterpay and Visa. So if you click on it, it will just download the APT, and then if you click on that, it will just download the Visa. I'm operating in Windows, so I'm not sure how it really works in your in your Apple's Macs. But what I've downloaded here is data from Yahoo Finance. So can you see this data here? So that's Yahoo Finance. So that's pretty much data from 2018 to 2019. So it's 1 year of data downloaded from Yahoo Finance. And we're going to be using these data points. And I'm going to run you through what we're going to be doing with this. And I'm going to have a bit of a challenge for someone more advanced with this. Very simple one, actually, not very complex, right? So I need you to basically get all sorted, get into a Moodle, download Afterpay, Visa, and then download pretty much each and every one of these sample codes. And you might as well do the ML, machine learning code samples as well. So we're definitely going to be covering all of these as we go along. All right, so that's job number one for you. Before and while you're doing it, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to review any of these week 1 or week 2. Those are important basics that I need you to be kind of comfortable with. What I'm going to do is step into the week 3. And again, as you can see, it's not very content heavy. So what I want to do is step through these notes, still talking, still explaining. If you have any questions, shoot it through. I'm going to run you through these aspects, which is functions, recursion, and other functions. And that is it. So what I mean by that is we're gonna finish in week 4, which I just opened up for you. They just explain a basic regression for you, and that is gonna be the end of the rigor that we need from coding. So that's as far as we're gonna push it in this course. We just don't have time for it, and it's not the primary focus, as you know. So week 1 to 4, again, basics for Python. I need you to be aware of what we went through before. So before diving in, just a quick refresh. In week number 1, we've done the really core basics of the language. Introduce you to the hello world, numbers, text, strings, get you comfortable in the environment. In week number 2, we kind of gone deeper into the data structures, and I explained to you that Python is extremely powerful when dealing with data structures, and that's what you need in data science, and that's what you need in finance and fintech, where you can combine structured and unstructured data streams. So that's why very likely Python is kind of where it is at the moment. So dictionaries, tuples, the basics, right? So week 1 and week 2, core basics. You really need to understand these to be comfortable with the syntax, to be comfortable with the usage of the code. Today, which is week 3, we're gonna go even deeper into the basics. So again, it's a primer, which means a basic structure. And here I want to run through the notion of functions, so you can create your own function. Before doing that, I want to introduce to you the assembly of very complex code, and what do we do in terms of objects, and what do we do in terms of libraries. What are the distinctions? Remember last time I told you that we're going to be talking about this today. And what I mean by that is if you look at the code, this is the code that you just downloaded, fintech task, market prices, local. I'll explain this to you shortly. I'll step through this code very shortly. But what I'm talking about at the moment is this, the libraries. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually going to import pandas. So pandas as PD, and then I'm going to import matplotlib as a library. So what it means is that I'm actually going to physically download this into my computer. So pandas, this is not pandas as pandas. This is Python data analysis library. It happens to be called pandas, but it's not like pandas, the cute little animal. What it is, it's basically a very powerful programming environment for data analytics, matrix calculations, computations, reshaping, factorization, arrays. Extremely heavily used in data science and finance per se, series calculations, very, very powerful library. So my point being is we literally downloading this library into our environment, and that's what I did here in the one line of the code. So that's what I mean by the statement of how do we assemble a very complex code. So very complex code comprises of different components. One of the core components of any code is a statement and syntax of the code, of the language. But also another level, another layer is what we call functions. So functions, objects, and libraries. So those are the components of a very complex code. Again, don't worry, we are not going to be doing any complex coding here. But in order to understand it, you need to understand these building blocks. So syntax of the language, how it deals with computing and machine underneath, which is the computer, PC. And then also the functions, objects, and libraries. So functions, I'll talk about functions today. Objects and libraries, we just don't have time for in this course. And we are not going to be building our own libraries here, that's for sure. But functions is a very simple tool that we're going to be using in our assignment. So I'm going to be asking you to use function, for instance. So it's good to actually understand what we're doing here. And very simple function is that you use some input and you calculate some output. So you can think of about, say, you input number 2, and you're gonna end up with number 5. All right, it's a function in between that will expand the number 2 to return number 5, so adds number 3 right into it. So that's a very simple function. Objects are pretty much what we've touched on before. Number of objects, everything is object-oriented programming, so everything that you deal with is object-oriented. And libraries is the example that I give you with pandas, which is very powerful tool that's got all these objects and functions and libraries written in itself, and you're downloading it into your environment, and then you can just use those functions without you ever coding it, which means you don't have to waste time coding a matrix calculations or coding arrays or time series analytics. It's already given to you, so you just don't waste time and execute. So that's the case modularization. So the way how you run a very complex structures is all these different components. And that's why I want to introduce you to functions. So this is a very simple function here that actually says define function is nothing's going to happen if I just define it. So the way how you define function is you type in def. So whenever you see in the code a def, that's a function. So you're starting a function and you're telling the function to print hello. So there is no input in here, right? So it's empty, and then just returns print. If you run it, nothing happens. You need to call that function. So you have to type that function in. When you run it, it's going to print hello, right? So that's the logic of functions. That's why we're using functions. And you must think, oh yeah, so what does this got to do with fintech? Well, everything, because if me as a business person tell you as a developer that I need a graph on my application to show the performance of an asset or show the performance of my payment systems, you as a developer will create functions under the hood and transpose my requests into these functions and objects. So that's why it's important. So the way how you think. Same here. If you put a name, so name is your input, then that input is going to get printed. So here I can fins3648 team, and then if I run it, it's going to print that as my results. So that's what I call input parameter. So this is what I putting inside that function so that the function can process it and will return, in this case, a very simple print. As you can imagine, this function can be extremely complex. And as you can see here, I can start to play around. So this is my predefined default if I don't put anything in. And then if I put anything in as an input, it will override it. So these are all these different variations. I can go deeper. And as you go deeper, there is going to be more complexity. So within the function, you can start to introduce what-if statement. Remember when we had a bit of a giggle talking about AI? Some people would define this as an AI, which is a what-if statement, and say, hey, we are running an AI algorithms, which is very, very much incorrect. So if you look at if name is done, you say it's empty. If you provide a name, it will print it, right? So that's how you can put these functions and conditions inside functions. So that's why it's important. You can do that with values. So I mentioned to you that you input 2, you're going to end up with 5. So this is exactly what it is. It just prints this return x plus y, right? That's what it is. And then you can play around and more complex components, divisions, multiplications, and you can go deeper into really complicating these functions, or rather using functions to complicate stuff, or vice versa. The same argument goes to recursion. I've had in the past, I have a lot of the students, especially those of you guys who've never been coding, having difficulties understanding this specific bunch of slides, which is recursions and other functions. Any questions you have? I've seen the Ed conversations. Really well done, guys, on supporting each other. Any questions you have, I'll step in. I'll provide more data or info or examples. But this is what we talking about when I'm introducing something real in the fintech space. So how do you actually deliver on a credit rating calculator? How do I know what is the credit rating of a person by combining all this data out there in the domain, open source domain, then processing algorithmic solutions, running some risk analytics on top of it? I'm going to end up with a result, and that result is going to be an index, which is going to be my credit rating, right? And if it's above a certain threshold, I'm kind of above average, or if it's below, I'm kind of below average, and my cost of funds should be higher, right? So I should be paying more interest because of my higher risk of default. That's literally how it works. And in order to get that, you have a bunch of these examples. Here I'm showing you a mathematical factorial. Don't worry about the underlying notion behind it. It's just showing you the capability and the power of Python to really create all these looks like I dropped you for a while, so just give me 2 seconds. I'll get you back. The action's been. Yeah, we are back online. So hopefully you can see me. A bit slow. Where I was heading is the other functions, where this is a very handy function to use for understanding. And I'll run through these because it's got to do with strings and numbers combined. As I mentioned to you, Python is very powerful in this space. So this function, let's say I run it, I'm going to end up with WHO, which is the first words. So W, H, and O. So those are the first three upper letters from that statement. And what this function does, it literally goes through the statement and picks up the first, whatever the number is, letters of that statement that are upper. So what it does, it literally steps through. Let me step through this code very quickly. So what it does, it returns result is 0. It's empty. Words string split. This function will split the statement into words. So it will take the string and it will split it into 3 words. And then there is another function underneath, hidden inside the original function, that returns the first string with the upper. So it transforms the first letter and then sets it up. And then it will go for each and every one of the rest of these words. It will collect the first word from that statement. So as you can see, the logic is kind of quite complex because you have an original function here, which is the acronym. Then you have some definitions. You split the inputs, the string, and then you define another function that is within that function. And then you call for that function within that function to be used. So as opposed to defining this outside this function, you define it inside that function, and you run a cycle that you need inside that function. So this is just to highlight my original argument to you that Python is very powerful because it allows you to write code the way how you think. So if you think in these complex terms, in the circle motions, you can actually represent it inside the script, inside the code. And this is what I've seen done quite heavily in quant finance, in trading, in high frequency trading. All of this complexity can be very well represented in Python space. Another very handy functionality here, sorting, where you can play around the sorts in and out. These sorting functions are used very heavily everywhere, whether it's text or whether it's numbers. And again, a bunch of the functionalities here, which is plus, minus, and functions of those, and then the same composition underneath. This is as far as we go in terms of complexity. The next week, I will run you through regression, which is very simple OLS, ordinary least square regression, in Python space, in Python code. And that's it, right? So I'm not going to be asking you to do any of these from scratch in terms of coding. I'm not going to be asking you to do anything in terms of like writing a natural language processing algorithms from scratch. We are not positioned to do that, yeah? So once again, we went through week 1, 2, and 3. So as you can see, week 3, there is just a few examples. But what I would like you to do is actually run these. You can do it now while you have time, and try to break it. Have a go, and try to kind of have a bit of a play with the Ed platform. And you can have a look at the week 4, which I just opened, in terms of the regression. And that's kind of an example of a bit more complex functionality, utilizing pandas, utilizing some basic analytics, and then actually having a look at the simple linear regression. So have a go, have a look. This is nothing complex, pretty simple stuff, and some more complex stuff actually. But they're just for fun. For those of you who are really keen to push the boundaries, I've included a couple of these strings codes that are a bit more advanced to what we've been looking at so far, right? So this is what I want to finish on Ed platform. Actually move back to your GUIs or IDs, whatever you're using. So I'm happen to be using, I don't think I'm using Anaconda here. I happen to default to use IntelliJ, but it doesn't matter, it's the same. Like overall, in terms of your running your code is exactly the same. What I want to do now is spend the rest of the session with 2 things. So the first thing is, you know how I ask you guys that I give you a bit of a challenge? Well, the challenge is super simple, and I'm not sure if you can do it. Anybody heard about Yahoo Finance? I think everybody can download it. And let me have a look at IPT. APT, sorry. Let me have a look at, so Yahoo Finance, APT, that's our Afterpay Limited, ASX. So this is in Yahoo Finance. In terms of data, so you can look at the company, you can look at $125, so the past 5 years. So as you can see here, so this is ATP Finance. So this is predefined graphical interface that's offered by Yahoo. So Afterpay, APT, they listed somewhere here at about $4. And in about 2020, they just gone ballistic to about $151 at the moment. So pretty good performance for a stock today, actually 5% up as a fintech company, right? So remember, we've been talking about fintech companies. This is a really good example of a very successful fintech company. There is a recent news about it, so that's the reason why they're gone ballistic. But anyway, this is just an example. What you can do, for those of you who are more adventurous in coding, what you can do here is you can go back and go to historical data, right? And you can download any frequency you want. So this is 2020. You can do, say, 6 months or year to date or 5 years and apply, right? And then what I can do is download this data, and that's going to be my APT AX. So this is going to be my new spreadsheet. So if you open that, so feel free to do that on your side. Open is 2017 all the way to 2021. So that's 2 today, pretty much today. So those are the recent numbers, so $125. So that's the performance of APT. So for those of you who are more keen to play around, as a bit of a job for you, go into this Yahoo Finance and then play around any stock you want. I happen to have Afterpay. Download the new string of data, right? More robust, a lot of data, or as much as you wish. That's what I want. So say APT, download live to date APT, or as much 5 years, download it, and then use those data points. That's right, good point. Jump in to the moon all the way. So let's do that. And in the meantime, for those of you who are not inclined to have a go, what I want you to do is open the script that I gave you, which is FinTech. I think you might not see this very well, right? How does it work? Let me expand this a bit. Say 14. Is it better? So what I want you to do is open the script, which is called FinTech Task Market Price Local. So today, I'm going to use Excel spreadsheet just to go through the need for consuming Excel spreadsheet into Python and explain what it actually does under the hood. Next week, we're actually going to use a API call into Yahoo, where I'm going to show you that you don't need to go through these spreadsheets, but you can go directly into Yahoo and extract the information. That's kind of how the future is. So anyway, the purpose of this session is actually important because we're going to need this for assignment. And let me just read through. Well, hold on. Let me just run this code first, and then I'm going to explain step by step. And then if you got any questions, we can zoom in. So what I did is just run the code. What we're going to end up with is two graphs: the stock number one and the returns, which is the difference for the stock number one, and stock number two, which is returns, or actually prices and the returns. As you can see, there's a lot of volatility there. And one of these stock is Afterpay, and one of these stock is Visa. So Visa and Afterpay. So we are comparing the performance of these two stocks. You're going to end up with these fancy graphs, and then you're going to end up with this script. So this is, remember, this is the results. So your graphs up and down, and then your returns, which is a percentage difference day to day. So these are daily closing marks for those stocks. So that's the result. And also you're going to end up with some prints. So what I mean by prints is results printed on the screen. So these are the results here. So in actual fact, when you run it, you're going to end up with printed numbers. So these numbers here, and then also with some statistics at the end. So these statistics at the end. What I want to show you though is the importance of Python in here. So if you look at the data that I've printed, is pretty much the data that I've downloaded, right? So my original data that I've asked you to download from Moodle for 1 year, 2018, 2019. And I've asked you to download that spreadsheet into a folder so we can play with it. And that's what I want to run through right now. So you are given a spreadsheet, which is Excel spreadsheet with the data. One of the questions in the assignment is very likely going to ask you to download data, whether it's going to be API or whether very likely it's going to be spreadsheet. So that's what I want to show you now. You have a data, which is a spreadsheet, and I need you to put the data inside Python environment, which is this. So you're placing it into the memory of your computer, right? So that's what you're doing. So the spreadsheet that you are given at the moment is called apt.ax, right? So what I'm doing there is I'm actually stepping through the code now. I ask you to import these libraries because we're going to use them. And then I'm downloading the data from a different folder. So I happen to save my my spreadsheet in the C temp folder. So in Mac, it's going to be a different location. In your PC, it's going to be like this. So I happen to save it in my temp folder on the C drive. and I did that for V-Stock, which is Visa stock, right? So I've downloaded these two, and then I printed it. So I printed both of these on the screen. So what you see here is pretty much the data. So if you think about it, this variable stock actually comprises a massive database. So the stock itself as a variable in Python is the data. So that stock in here is actually carrying the entire matrix of the data that I downloaded. It could be huge, it could be gigabytes of data. This happens to be the small spreadsheet that I've downloaded, but what I've done is I've converted that Excel spreadsheet into a variable stock inside Python, and then I started to do some operations on that stock, right, which is the actual data. And that operation that I'm doing here is basically selecting from that information, selecting just one column, which is this. So I decided to select the close, not the adjusted one. So I've decided from that load of the data that I downloaded, I decided to select just one variable, which is close, and then obviously in time, so every day. So it's a time series of the close prices that I've decided to download. And that's what I did here. So stock one close variable picks up just one column of the data. And then I'm going to do some percentage change on that variable. I'm going to play around with that. And then I'm going to do some moving average. So the moving average is a window of 30 days. And I'll explain that to you shortly. And then I'm going to calculate the moving average mean value. So what is the mean value of that moving average? And then I'm going to print a couple of information about the stock. So it's a mean, which is an average price for the 1 year, and the standard deviation, which is the measure of risk, how volatile that stock is within that 1 year time. So that's the historical volatility, right? So that's what I do for stock one, and I do exactly the same for stock two. And then if I step through the code, what I'm going to end up with is creating a figure, which is a plot. And then in that plot, I'm going to go 2 by 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4 plots inside 2 by 2. And then the location is 2 to 1, 2 to 2, 2 to 3, 2 to 4. So that's my location position of my plots. And then I'm going to print and show the results for stock 1, and then results for stock 2. And I'm going to end up with the actual print of the stock. So if I run it as a script, I'm going to end up with these fancy looking stocks here, right? So these are the Afterpay and Visa stock performance measures. And remember, I asked you to print the most up-to-date information of APT. Well, let's have a look at that. So I downloaded these into my downloads. So that's this download here. I can copy and move it into my temp. Say I can move it here. So I call it apt.ax, and that happens to be in CSV file. So apt.ax. So I dumped it into my temp environment, right? So let's have a look. Let's change the address here, apt.ax. And just run it. So now I'm going to end up with slightly different picture, because now I actually included the entire 5 years of APT. So the stock number 1 is my Afterpay, and then the red line there is my 30-day average that I showed you just now. Okay, so that's what I did in terms of the change. So that's my change of the specification, right? So this is my change of the data. So I've increased the number of data. Look at the Afterpay performance, it's just gone absolutely ballistic. If I change the window to say 50 days or 60 days and run this, you're going to end up with slightly different measure. So these measure here, I change it on this line as well. So 60 for this and 60 for Visa, and run it. And then you're going to end up with these measures, which is the red line here, is kind of of a more smoother way of the average. So this is your average price, 60-day average price. This is your 60-day average price for Afterpay performance here. And the volatility is pretty much out there as well. So this is a measure of the volatility. So if you ask me, what was the question there? Is this quant? Yeah, this could be considered as a something that the quant would be doing in terms of analyzing the data. What I wanted to focus on, though, is on the process. And what I really need you to focus on is these lines here, which is kind of looking at how to transpose and download information from a spreadsheet, and how can you manipulate it, how can you play around with it. So that's the core reason why I showed you this specific script today, where I want you to focus on having a play with using Excel and combine Excel with Python, because everybody here, I think, is comfortable with Excel, I believe. And then what we try to do is get you comfortable in Python space. You can do quite a lot of stuff here. You can do quite a lot of additional analytics, additional trading pattern strategies, whatever you wish, that you can do quite a lot. So for your task, if you didn't do it today, go into Yahoo, download APT or Visa, and just get the latest information and just print it. Have a look and compare the performance of Visa versus the APT, which is Afterpay. You can do Zip, you can do anything out there that's being currently listed in the market space. So again, in conclusion, we've covered the basic syntax in coding for Python as a base. So most of you guys who've never been exposed to coding, that is sufficient for you to understand the basics. Week 3, next week, we're gonna be moving into more complex, slightly more complex items, but it's not required in terms of for the assignment. What's really needed for the assignment is understanding the syntax for Python, understanding the main functions, the role of functions, how to read a spreadsheet into the Python environment, have a correct setup on your machine. Those are the important features that I need you to be exposed to, right? From next week, I'm gonna step through, no, you need to know how to do that. So understand and actually get practical. So I need you to kind of understand what we're doing, object-oriented programming, understand the concept of function, understand the insides and outs of what input and out parameters are, the basic syntax. I need you to understand that, but at the same time, I need you to apply it. So I need you to basically execute on it. If you ask me if there is a no downloading pandas, what you do is you put that in here as an import pandas in a code, and if you don't have it on your machine, it will break. So then there is a terminal, and what you need to do is you need to basically type in pip install pandas, and that will install everything for you. So you don't have to do anything else. So if you got any issues with the setup, any issues with the environment, please get it sorted now, because then you're gonna get exposed to the assignment, and it's gonna be easier if you get it all up and running. Yes, there is a lot of material about pandas. So again, don't look at any biology books. So this is not a biology stuff, or pandas are beautiful cuddly animals, and Python is a snake. Don't worry about it. There is a lot of materials about pandas. I don't need you to actually cover the basic, the core. This is a good link for that. So I'll ping it down. But you can literally spend the rest of your 10 weeks on going through this, and I don't want you to do that, all right? So I'll take this as a bit of a tip of an iceberg exploration of what it can do as a coding environment. Yeah, excellent. Quantopia has got a lot of stuff related to finance. I mean, to be honest with you guys, we are touching just the surface of what's possible in Python in this course. We, as a UNSW business school, I think we're going to be offering more. We're already offering more courses that are deeper into analytics, deeper into the computing, and deeper into the applied coding, not clean cut computer science, but really applied to finance, dedicated to finance. So I think that would be there is always options on that front. All right, guys. Look, I'll leave it to it's kind of 5:40. Geez, 45. Look, I'll finish here. So the challenge for you stands. Go into Yahoo and get any company you want, anything you want. Download as many data as you want, and then use it in this script. You're gonna end up with these fancy graphs. You can have a go and try to change it. So that's your task for the workshop. You can do it now or later on, whenever. Next week we're gonna step in through and we're gonna move into machine learning. So these basics are important for us to build on that. So then I'm gonna start to introduce you to a bit more complex machine learning algorithms, which we will not design, we will not write, we will just use, we will utilize those. So next week we're gonna get busier on the Python coding, and I'm gonna slowly move in this environment. So I'm gonna move you out of the Ed platform, which is quite nice and neat, into this environment, which is pretty much how the practitioners are using it in the banks. Where is the script does? So the way how you do that is in Macs or Apple computers. I'm not sure how it actually. What is the short code? Someone might figure it out in the Ed. Yeah, Max is slightly different, so I'm sorry about it. I don't have that information. If I do it in like a PC, I'm basically using just the reference to where I store the data, and that's my folder. In Max, I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure someone else dump it on the Ed platform. I'm sure someone out there might be able to resolve it. This is for today, so I'm gonna stop it here. For next week, again, I'm gonna move you into more complex machine learning tools, again in similar fashion. And also I'm gonna introduce you to an API call, which is a much more sophisticated way of dealing with data handling. Yeah. Okay, team. On that note, thank you very much for your time. Highly appreciate it. Had lots of fun. Yeah. Is there a question? Any questions? Any question? Gordon? Oh yeah. Send me an email on the group. If you want to form a new group, I'm sure there is still a few of us not being allocated, so we can actually allocate those guys. If not, you're gonna get allocated to a group pretty soon, either later today or definitely by across this week. It's fine. Four people is fine. I'm okay with 4 people. 5 people is preferable, but if you have 4, that's okay. That's fine with me. Send me detail though, because I think it's locked. It's already closed. So do send me a detail so I can actually change it. Yeah. All right, team. Had lots of fun today. It was very practical, so hopefully it might have helped you a bit. And I'll see you on the other side. Yeah. Next week, a bit of a quiz session, and then we go from there. So enjoy. Best of luck. And any questions, shoot it through. More than happy to assist and help as much as I can. Okay. Yes, correct. Look at Zip. Look at Afterpay. Look at the fintech space, guys. All right. Talk soon. Ciao.